Welcome into the Sports Buffoons Podcast. Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls out there of the world, into the Sports Buffoon studio here. We got our boy here, Tanner Dawson to my left here, and Jason JG is with us, but he's actually in Colorado. Jason, what city are you in right now?
I'm in Estes Park, Colorado, getting high and drunk.
Getting high and drunk. All right. Well, that was probably a lot of information to think about because
that's pretty good.
You're on a vacation. I mean, you're not under contract by any means, so you can get high and as drunk as you want. It's up to you, man. But what's the most fun thing you've done out there so far?
We did the roller coaster that they have out here, so that was pretty cool. Other than that, just doing stuff with my daughter. So she likes miniature golf. Did some couple of different arcades that were pretty cool out here.
Any cool games?
Yeah.
No.
Did they have Blitz? Did they have NFL Blitz? Did you see that?
They didn't have Blitz.
Nobody has Blitz these days.
I've been to a few that have NFL Blitz still.
Well,
if you go to Up Down here in Kansas City, they still have NFL Blitz.
Yeah, but like the rest of them you go to, there's none.
If you end up at Blackhawk, there's an arcade there, Blackhawk Casino, arcade down there that probably has NFL Blitz. They still have that arcade over there, I believe. So
I would have gone to Blackhawk, but as you guys know, I'm on a gambling detox, so I'm trying to stay away from the casinos for a while.
Very good. So what you're not detoxing on, though, right now is some booze.
Right.
So with that said, Tanner and I, we're over here sharing a bottle of Old Forester, so we're sipping on that. What are you sipping on over there before we get going here?
Well, right now I've got a Wildflower Honey Helles from Native, Colorado.
Ooh, that actually sounds pretty good. A Honey Helles. Wildflower Honey Helles. That sounds good, actually. I like that. It's
something different. I've been drinking Imperial Stouts almost every day, so I'm just trying to take a break from the Imperial Stouts right now.
Which I believe Helles is a German lager style of beer, so I know you like some of the lagers out there of the world. So that's a good easy day off of drinking. In quotations, a day off of drinking for you, Mr. Jason.
Well, it is basically water. It's actually 3.8% ABV, so I'm basically drinking water right now.
Yeah, get hydrated, man. So with that said, guys, we obviously today, now that the NBA season is fully wrapped up, over with, NHL is going on at the moment, as a matter of fact. We have the Avs and the Lightning playing tonight for Game 4, I believe it is. The Lightning are up, the Avs are up 2-1 right now in that series. But it's been good, man. We're watching right now the best offense against the best defense, which is how championships should always be, regardless of the sport, right? So
correct. That's how exactly it should be.
So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that here as the stream rolls along. But first and foremost, we got to talk about fantasy football. We got to talk about Rob Gronkowski's retirement and what we think about that and his comparison to Travis Kelce, as you guys saw in the thumbnail. And after that, we do have a little bit of NBA news and thoughts we'd like to wrap up with too. So with that said, you guys, with fantasy football around the corner, let's dig right into this. And people are right now thinking about what they want to do with their draft, thinking about who they want to target this year, some new faces, old faces, and new places, I should say, and how that affects what's going to happen in each market and each draft, and who's going to be risers and decliners in the NFL. And so one of our topics we wanted to dig into today a little bit here was guys who last year were fairly high up on the board in the rankings, who this year you're almost taking off your board and wanting to completely ignore for one reason or the other. So with that said, I'm curious, Jason, who do you have in mind this year for fantasy football in PPR or non-PPR leagues that you want to take off your board entirely?
Well, I've got a list here, but I'm going to start with DK Metcalf. So last year he had 75 receptions, 967 yards, 12 touchdowns. That was with Russell Wilson as his quarterback. And I don't really know who the starter is going to be, but DK Metcalf is not a guy that I personally am going to be able to trust. His ADP last year was 20.1. And a lot of people think that maybe the Seahawks will go after Baker Mayfield. I guess that's possible. I don't really see it happen. I still think he's going to go to Carolina, which leaves you with maybe a couple of bums, at quarterback.
Drew Lock would probably be the guy right now that would be.
Yeah, he would be the starter right now
as of this moment.
Of that team.
We've seen how that kind of goes in Denver in the past with Drew Lock. And it's a big step down from Russell Wilson. So I totally agree with that.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that by far.
Yeah. Did you have anybody else in mind, Jason?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and throw out another one. I want to throw out Amari Cooper of the Browns.
Amari Cooper?
Yeah, he was ADP 41.1 last year. There's been some speculation that the Browns might go after Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe do a trade for him, since Deshaun Watson's probably not going to be playing for a while. I don't think that trade's going to happen. But even if it does, I mean, Amari Cooper is just going to be kind of up and down this year. And as you guys know, especially with the wide receiver position, I like to draft a guy that I can depend on from week to week. Amari Cooper has really never been that guy. I mean, yeah, he's had a couple of decent years, but definitely now that he's on the Browns, not a guy that I'm gonna be able to depend on week in and week out this year.
Yeah, I get that with Cooper. He's always been kind of an inconsistent player in fantasy, in my opinion. Where he'll have 1 week where he has 2 touchdowns for 120 yards, and then he'll have another week where it's 30 yards and nothing. I mean, it's just he's a frustrating guy to have on your roster. So he's a guy in general, even before this year, that I was not a big fan of. So Tanner, who do you have in mind, guys that need to be avoided this year in fantasy?
So I finally got it up here. My computer's slow as no other, but I think 2 guys in my mind. First off is Deontay Johnson. He did sneak into that top 50 last year. This is a guy that's going from Big Ben, a consistent quarterback, to Pickett, Rudolph.
Yeah, look, probably Kenny Pickett is my guess. Mason Rudolph is terrible, guys.
It's not good.
If Mason Rudolph's your quarterback, you're not going to have a good year statistically, no matter who you are.
Yeah, and if you look at it too, like Johnson's bad time was actually when Big Ben wasn't in the lineup, and you're not going to have a guy that come in next year to replace Big Ben right off the bat. Yes, Johnson will get targets and stuff, but he's not going to execute, and the guy has stone hands as well. There's tons of drops by him last year that really hurt a lot of fantasy owners. So Deontay Johnson's one for sure. The other guy I'd probably say is Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown. He's in competition with Rondale Moore. Hopkins is going to be out for a bit, so sure, he might be a little bit of a hot start for you. But outside of the AJ Green, Rondale Moore, I feel like you're going to get bulk of the targets for that Arizona team, and I wouldn't touch Hollywood Brown till really late, if anything. So,
see, I actually feel like he's in a better situation in Arizona at the moment compared to what he had in Baltimore. Just from that passing attack they have with Kyler Murray, I feel like it's more of obviously a error game compared to what Baltimore did at one point, which was the most rushing attempts at NFL history. Just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
So, in my opinion, I like Hollywood Brown for the most part, but I don't know that he's going to be a consistent contributor on that team, especially once Hopkins is fully involved and back into that system. So, for me, I wouldn't really touch him either. So, I totally get that.
I'm not. Yeah, I wouldn't. Not too confident in him. So.
Yeah, my guy, my first and foremost, my biggest one on this is a teammate, of course, of what Jason's pick was. Mine's Tyler Lockett, and I think this is an obvious choice, you guys, because he was the ADP WR 19 last year, so he would have been on average the 19th receiver off the board, and this year he's actually ranked WR 46, which is much more accurate of probably where he's going to end up after the removal of Russell Wilson from the team. I do want to point out he finished as the WR 14 last year in PPR leagues. So he actually had a really good season this past year, neck and neck with DK Metcalf. But going forward, Tyler Lockett, his problem is consistency. And we saw that last year with Russell, where he would have week 1, go out there, have a monster week with, 170 yards and maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns in a game. And then he'd give you a bunch of nothing after that. And if you're inconsistent,
big old fart sounds.
If you're inconsistent with Russell Wilson at quarterback, then what's going to happen to you when you have Drew Lock at quarterback? And I don't like the idea of even getting involved with Tyler Lockett at this point, and especially not anywhere where he finished this past year. So WR46 is probably correct at the moment.
So I do want to be devil's advocate on this between Jason here and Mike. Look at it maybe this way, turn it around, right? They're inconsistent with Russell Wilson on sharing targets essentially between the two of them, where they'd explode one week, be sucky the next week, and so on. Maybe look at them as now that Drew Lock is there, he's going to have to force feed these guys into play. Look at examples of Denver, right? With the wideouts that they had opportunities with Judy when he was healthy last year. Who is it? I'm thinking Tim Patrick. He came alive there with consistent targets as well. He was really actually decent value last year for fantasy, if you look at it that way. So maybe we're thinking too much of just because the star quarterback's gone. Maybe we're thinking now we need to turn our look like, oh, well, what kind of targets, what kind of share is going to go in? And those two guys might get force fed essentially down the way.
If anyone's force fed, in my opinion, I think it'd be Metcalf over Lockett. Just because I think what happens when you have a weaker quarterback come into a situation, they rely on big physical targets. And a guy like Lockett, who's only, 5'10", but probably 5'9" on a good day, realistically, like I think that's going to be a guy where you have to fit it into a tighter window, whereas Metcalf at least has the size and long arms to be able to make the contested or more inaccurate catches in those kind of situations. So, a situation where Calvin Johnson could still thrive even with a bad quarterback in Detroit at one point. But I'm not going to sit there and say that you could throw in a guy like a Tyler Lockett who would still be able to put up great numbers in that situation. You're at that point relying on big physical guys to take over, just throw the ball up and hope things work out, And I think that's what Drew Lock's going to do.
Tanner, I would say to that, as far as force feeding guys, Drew Lock can try to force feed whoever the hell he wants. It's not going to matter because he's not a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. So force feeding somebody doesn't really matter. You're not going to be able to depend on those guys because Drew Lock, even if he does have a couple of good games, he's going to have huge ups and downs. And you're not going to be able to predict any of those wide receivers from week to week.
Yeah, inconsistency is the main thing we're going to run into with both these receivers. So it sucks because DK Metcalf's still young and on a great trajectory for his career. And this year he probably will be hindered by the loss of Russell Wilson. So to me, you got to look at these guys and understand that you're not going to have consistency week to week from these guys. And it just is what it is. I personally like consistency. I was a Cooper Kupp owner this past season, and that was awesome because I knew what to expect every single week. I knew I was going to get in the double digits, and I didn't have to worry about it.
And, I mean, thinking about it too, right? So, let's see, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah, the division. So the division that Seattle plays in too is not a light division. It's actually, well, maybe not this year, but it is still a harder division than what Drew Lock played against the last couple of years in the AFC West. So those defenses are ruthless with San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Arizona. So, I feel like there's more issues that could arise as well in that division 2 times a year each team.
Well, we'll see if anything changes, obviously, because there's a lot of time between now and when most fantasy drafts will be going on, which is going to be late August, early September. But everyone, we just want to get it in your mind now about who to avoid. We'll have much more information and more topics on this as time goes on, of course, in the off season here. This is kind of an early bird.
Yeah.
Put it in your mind, sprinkle it in there. That way it's in your back of your memory for when time comes.
I did want to get one extra thought out here on this subject here while we're still here. Allen Robinson, guys, how do you feel? Do you think this is a guy that could sneak back into a top 50 with the Los Angeles Rams and Matthew Stafford with Robert Woods gone? Or are we feeling like his days are past and it's not going to happen?
I have my problem with Allen Robinson is just the situation he put himself in and the mouths to feed in that situation because you got a lot of guys to work with there, and Van Jefferson's still up and coming at the moment and improving. I like him quite a bit. Obviously, Cooper Kupp is going to be getting the lion's share of the targets. I think Robinson's in a good situation as far as when it comes to helping a franchise win, but as far as fantasy goes, I think he could take a step back from what his potential could have been as your WR1 that you saw him as in Jacksonville and Chicago.
Okay, Jason,
I agree with you on that, Mike, as well. And You also can't discount the fact that they do want to bring back in OBJ. So that's just another mouse they're going to have to feed. So again, I agree with Mike here. Love it. I love Allen Robinson from an NFL perspective, but not necessarily as a fantasy football wide receiver.
Yeah, and Nick Botkins at the Botkins show that's on with me Mondays, he's really hoping OBJ doesn't go back. So because he's a Packers fan, he's really hoping for some Packers nation. So, but hey, we'll see, right? We still got time.
Yeah, and I thought Odell fit in great with the Rams towards the end of that season, especially. And I thought that it's one of those things where you saw his career kind of come back to life again in a way, and he was motivated again. And so I think Odell, if he's smart, stays as a Ram, in my opinion, just because I think you fit in well there.
He's home.
You got
technically.
You felt comfortable there. Obviously, him and Matthew Stafford had a really good connection there. And yeah, it's a lot of mouths to feed at that point between all the receivers there. But I mean, do you want to win championships? Because obviously the Rams are going to be a team for the foreseeable future that have potential to get there every year for the next, maybe 3 years.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yep. So anyways, guys, any other guys to throw out there at the moment while we're sitting here?
Hey,
I've got to throw out one guy. I just want you guys' opinion on Tyreek Hill. His ADP was 10.8 last year. And we all know that Tua, as far as a quarterback, is a huge step back from what Tyreek had last year in Patrick Mahomes. You also got
but he's a more accurate quarterback. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. You also got Jalen Waddle over there is going to eat in that offense. And so me personally, I would drop Tyreek Hill down the board a little bit. He's also getting a little bit older, might be popping a couple of hammies this year playing in that warmer weather down there in Miami. So I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, Tanner, you go ahead, because you said the other day on the show, we asked this topic. He says that Tyreek Hill is going to have a better next 4 years than he had the previous 4 years. So that means you need to explain yourself and give your honest answer.
Yeah, guess what? I'm taking him still at 10. I think it's appropriate. I think it's appropriate where he's at. I think it's going to get the bulk of the targets, bulk of the yards. He's going to be the guy that's explosive on the offense. They have Waddle. I love Waddle. He's fabulous last year, but I think Tyreek is going to be the guy and in Dolphins Nation for the next at least 4 years. So I'm going to go. I like where he was last year, and I think he ends up finishing exactly where he was last year.
So last year he finishes the WR 6th in PPR, Tanner. So
I'm fine with that.
You're saying he's going to finish same?
6 or 5, I'd say. I'd say he still finishes high.
Honestly, with the way that Mike McDaniels runs his offense and the creativity he has so far that we've seen, I could see if Tyreek is healthy all year, him being in that mix. I see him probably being easily in that top 7 receiver range. But I don't know that he's going to necessarily match the receiving numbers that he had in Kansas City.
So here's the worry, right, with Tyreek Hill in that offense. If McDaniels decides to go the route of treating him like a Debo, well, that's an issue, because now you're putting a lot of wear and tear on a body that, he had some wear and tear in KC, but it wasn't that kind of productive right there, because he just not built that way.
I think they're going to want to use him in the backfield though a little bit.
Right, that's fine. I'm fair with that happening, but the amount of times it happens, like it happened with Debo last year, that's where Debo got in trouble towards the end of the year in the playoffs, where he started getting like injuries and fatigue and all that. That's what happened. And if Debo's having issues there, Tyreek's not built like Debo. The guys, don't get me wrong, like I'm not saying Tyreek's like the weak lean by any means. This guy's, if you watch YouTube or anything like that, this guy's freaking rocked, right? But he's not meant for that kind of, amount of plays, the way it's done, essentially, from McDaniels. So I could see him throwing the backfield, which is fine. Similar with Reed, but I'll go see him maybe a little bit more from the backfield as in plays conducted for him. But if the guy starts getting in the amount of touches that Debo touches, it's in trouble. It's in trouble.
I agree with that, because Debo Samuel had 180 total touches last year between rushing attempts and his receiving wise as well. And so I see this thing unfolding, and Tyreek Hill is one of those guys that you don't want to necessarily force feed him the ball, which they're not going to have to. Waddle is going to get plenty of catches as well.
Yeah. No, it's going to be a very shared offense.
They have some good weapons there on that team. So I think they have more weapons than the Chiefs had as far as at the receiving part this previous year. I think that their WR2 is better than the Chiefs WR2, Byron Pringle from last year. So I'll take, Waddle in that situation to get more targets than what Pringle provided. But I just don't know that his body can withstand, and I'm not going to take him at ADP of 10, as you just pointed out. I would consider him in the back end of the second round, though.
Back end.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I have to put a number on it, I'm going to go ahead and say WR10 this year. You look at the first-year coach, Mike McDaniel. He's got his shiny new little toy. So the temptation is going to be there for him to just run his ass into the ground. So I think you're going to see Tyreek. He's going to miss a handful of games this year due to injury. And, I would put him maybe WR9, WR10 range.
And honestly, in a lot of ways, Jalen Waddle should be a guy that's on your radar just for that sake alone, because, he can do a lot of great things as well. So he's a guy that, as a rookie, obviously we saw him get a ton of targets, ton of catches. In that situation, Tyreek Hill's going to take attention away from Waddle. And he's a guy that I don't know where he's exactly ranked at the moment, but I would want to be interested in taking him on my team.
Right. And we'll obviously dig deeper into this subject between Tua, Waddle, and Tyreek as we go throughout the offseason and month of July. We'll bring on Ryan Larison, fantasy football expert who writes for multiple sites here, and get his thoughts as well. Because, it's just kind of intriguing for that Dolphins team to exactly say or try to project exactly where the shares come from. And if Tua could be a actual great quarterback, top 15 maybe. So it'll be kind of interesting on that side.
Well, you guys, how do you feel about Rob Gronkowski retiring? Do you think it's fake news? Do you think this is a Tom Brady kind of a move, or is he actually going to be done, do you think?
Jason, I'll let you start, man.
I don't think he's done, man. I think he's following in the GOAT's footsteps of having a fake retirement, and I think it might be one of those things where he's trying to preserve his body. He's done this before where he just kind of preserves his body, and then he shows up, starts to ramp up around week 8, week 9, ramps up, get ready for the playoffs. I think that's where it's headed here because, dude, he doesn't really need to do that much. They just need him as a red zone target. So if they can get him for that, then I don't think he really needs to show up until week 8 or 9. But yeah, I believe him when he says he's retired, but he's definitely coming back.
Yeah, I talked about this earlier too, and my first thought was like, okay, I could see this guy. He's a plug and play player, so he's a guy that could come back in the middle of the season or even for the playoffs alone and walk right in and be productive. And so not everyone can do that, but he can. So I could see Gronk coming back for sure. I see if they're in a situation where for some reason Brady feels like he's the missing piece of that offense to put them over the top once you get to the postseason, then hey, can you come back and play 4 games? Sure. Of course he can come in and make that happen. But I agree. He doesn't want to go through training camp. He doesn't want to go through the preseason process and all this other stuff. He still wants to probably party. I don't blame him. We all like to party every once in a while. But you know what I'm saying? Like if I'm Gronk, I feel the same way. Just plug me in when you need me, because I know I'm that kind of player. I'm one of the greatest of all time. And but for now, I guess we got to treat it as a retirement and take it for what it is. And that's why our question of the day is about who has the better career, who had the better career between Kelce and Gronk.
So real quick on this Gronk thing too. You remember he retired a couple of years ago too and got talked out when Brady went to Tampa, right? So it's not the first time Gronk has thought about retirement, and he thinks about it often. The guy's just beat up essentially, and we'll talk about a little bit more why he's beat up, but the guy's just beat up. His body hurts. We all know his body hurts because he talks about it every year. He's already said this offseason, if they were to ask, Tampa Bay was to ask him right after the season, essentially the month, if he was going to retire or not, he already said that, he'd retire. No problem. No hands down. He wouldn't be coming back. So, but Mike and I were talking at Limitless, and yes, I could see exactly what you're saying, Jason. Hey, it's playoff time. Let's go. I need that big body in the red zone. Let's go.
All he's got to do is just get himself another ring, then he'll have 5 rings, Tanner.
5 rings.
Yeah, that's kind of
one loss?
Yeah.
Oh,
One
yeah,
loss?
probably.
5-1?
I think you might have one.
Well, think of it this way. When you're a tight end, the losses don't matter as much. When you're a quarterback, the losses actually matter a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. All right, guys. So, anyways, our actual discussion here right now is about Travis Kelce versus Rob Gronkowski. Who has had the better career to this point? Obviously, Travis is still going to continue playing, hopefully for the next 5 years. I want him to be like Jason Witten, just play his ass out until he's like almost 40, and then go to the announcer's booth and do your thing. You know what I mean?
I mean, that'd be cool.
But
Don't get me wrong.
it's hard to say. I mean, he's coming up on 33, and the thing is, Travis has been a fairly healthy player, really a fully healthy player his whole career, besides his rookie season, where he missed basically all of. And Gronk was not able to get to that level of luckiness, I would say, because Gronk has battled back injuries, elbow injuries, leg injuries in the past. And so obviously that has become a hindrance towards his career. At the same time, when he's on the field, he might be the most unstoppable tight end of all time from a red zone perspective, and just you can't guard him. He's got too big of hands, too long of arms, he's too tall, and he's also fast with all that combined. So it's absolutely nuts to think about.
It's not a lot.
And it's crazy to think that him and Aaron Hernandez were a tandem at one point, and one of the best tight end tandems of all time, as a matter of fact. So anyways, so Jason, who would you give the edge to career-wise between Travis Kelce and Rob Gronkowski? Who was better?
Yeah, I think when it's all said and done, you got to go with Rob Gronkowski here. And I know Kelce is probably going to pass him in touchdowns. He only needs like 36 more touchdowns to pass Gronk. And he's easily going to pass him in yards. But as you guys know, no matter what sport we talk about on this show, I'm not a big stats guy, okay? You can pump stats. You can be like Russell Westbrook. You can have stats all day long. I want to know who's going to win. So right now, Gronkowski has 4 rings, maybe going for 5. Who knows? Travis Kelce, we don't know how many he's going to end up with, but let's just say he ends up with 3, right? To me, that makes Rob Gronkowski a better winner. He's also a slightly bigger target at 6'6", 265. And so for me, yeah, Kelce's going to have the better stats, but it's kind of like, what do we always say when we do these GOAT conversations? Well, yeah, LeBron will probably eventually have better stats than Jordan, but hey, hear me out. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to care because Jordan's going to have more rings. Gronkowski's going to end up with more rings. So you can take those stats and shove it up your ass because I only care about winners.
So the rings thing is just beyond me when it comes to positions outside of
I
the
don't
quarterback.
understand it.
Like, you understand, like, if you gave Rob Gronkowski Alex Smith, he doesn't have all those rings, right? So, like, luckily he had the luxury of having Tom Brady his entire career, the best quarterback of all time his entire career, and those rings are a product of that. Not necessarily Gronk. I mean, you understand, the Chiefs had the best tight end of all time up until recently, at one point in the 2000s, Tony Gonzalez. And Tony Gonzalez couldn't win him a damn playoff game. Yet he was considered the best of all time. And so he got no rings as Tony Gonzalez. But we're going to sit here and worry about rings for Gronk.
If you want to use the Tom Brady argument, I'm perfectly fine with that. But the last time I checked, Alex Smith, he wasn't exactly a bum, but he was a guy that couldn't really throw the ball downfield. So he would target Kelce all day long. And so I don't think, Alex Smith wasn't Brady or Mahomes, but he wasn't like this bum quarterback that couldn't get him the ball. And so, I mean, obviously Gronk had the better quarterback the whole time. But, when you look back like 10, 15 years from now, all you're going to look at is championships. And I think they're going to look back and say, I think pound for pound, Gronk was the better tight end, even though he didn't quite have those stats. Like, I know you guys, all you guys out there, you like to look at stats first. I don't think that's how it's going to be looked at in history.
So would you say that Shannon Sharp's a better tight end than Tony Gonzalez then?
I mean, I don't really care about those guys. Those are old farts that have been out of the league for I don't know how many years.
Well,
so we need to
one
stick
of
to the
them
script
had
here, Mike.
3 rings, and the other one had like 2 playoff wins in his whole career. So just basing it off your own theory of the way things work, I'm asking you, if rings are all that matters, and we're talking about tight ends, not quarterbacks, We're not talking about Dan Marino and Jim Kelly. We're talking about tight ends. Do you think that Shannon Sharp is better because he has 3 rings compared to Gonzalez's 0?
You could make the argument that they're even, and I think there are a lot of people out there that would say that Shannon Sharp is a better tight end.
Andre Iguodala or Steph Curry? They both have 4 titles and both have 1 Finals MVP.
We're talking about superstars, so please don't bring up Bill Russell like you always do in the NBA. He's got 11 rings and 15.
I didn't say Bill Russell. I said Andre Iguodala or Steph Curry.
We're not going to debate role players, okay? We're debating superstar.
What about Parker? What about Parker? Parker and Steph Curry.
Stick to the current argument. This is between 2 superstar tight ends. We're not talking about bum players.
Okay. All I'm going to say here about this is that I think that the idea that you have to base everything off of rings as a tight end is absolutely obnoxious and absurd. And so it's just ridiculous. It's stupid, as a matter of fact. Now I understand that rings to an extent can be an impact. But when we're comparing player for player, I mean, yeah, if you had Travis Kelce and Brady together their whole careers, Travis is probably going to put up the same numbers he's put up to this point. I mean, Travis is going to be good regardless of who the quarterback is, because he is the best damn thing on that field when it comes time. And Alex didn't want to have to throw to the receivers during most of his career because he was working with a bunch of bums out there. He had 1 season where he had 0 touchdowns thrown to wide receivers because they were all shitty. And Travis Kelce was there, and he ended up getting like 5 that season. So anyways, we're getting off a different tangent. But back to the actual debate here between Kelce and Gronk. So I will say this. I think Travis Kelce between the 20s is by far better than Rob Gronkowski. And what I mean by that is that he's a better yards after catch player. He's a better route runner. I even will say, I mean, I think he's better in every way you want a receiving tight end to be than Rob Gronkowski is. Now in the red zone, that's a different story, because in the red zone, you're working with just a huge, massive, huge-handed guy of Rob Gronkowski. Like in the red zone, I give the edge to Rob Gronkowski. But between the 20s, that's why we're looking at Travis Kelce still has more catches than Gronk. He's also going to be having more yards than Gronk here as of this coming season.
Yep.
But he will never catch him in touchdowns. He'll never catch him in touchdowns because of the red zone opportunities that were presented to Gronk, and because Gronk really is the best red zone tight end probably of all time, maybe even over Tony Gonzalez.
Yeah, and you're looking at 92 versus 57, by the way, on touchdowns. That's how much of a difference it is.
I disagree with you on that, Mike. I think there's a chance that he could actually catch him in touchdowns. Now, obviously, Gronk would have to stay retired, but all he needs is 36 more touchdowns. I could see Kelce getting there.
I just don't see that at all, because you're looking at, if Kelce plays 5 more years, he needs 36 more touchdowns. Yeah. You're looking at 8 touchdowns per year for the next 5 years to hit to that mark. And I just do not see that happening. I think there's going to be a down year, maybe an injury at some point in the middle of there.
So you got Kelce, right? Sitting in the last 4 years, he had 10 in 2018, 5 in 2019, 11 in 2020, and 9 in 2021, right? And the guy's going on his, 9th year in the league. I mean, if the guy stays healthy and he's still a weapon, yeah, sure, maybe he might get close. But I don't know if he touches 92, maybe 88. Maybe I don't think he gets past 85, honestly, in his career.
I do want to point out in big games, though, both of these guys have shown up huge. So in playoff games, these guys both show up. They're not guys who, like, oh, where did he go? In the middle of the playoff game. Kelce always shows up. In fact, he beats Gronk on a per-game basis. 7 catches per game in the playoffs compared to 4.5 for Gronk, and 86 yards compared to 63 for Gronk. And touchdowns, Kelce actually beats Gronk in touchdowns in playoff games compared to where Gronk's numbers at. So on an average playoff game basis, Travis Kelce actually even trumps Gronk in all categories. So for me, it's like, man, so even though they're both so great in big games, Travis is going to end up with the 2nd most receiving yards in playoff history, only behind Jerry Rice as a tight end, which is just absolutely insane to think about that a tight end can be number 2 in playoff yards of all time. And that's Travis Kelce right now.
So you guys both vote for Kelce then, right? We'll have the better career.
I give Kelce the slight edge in this. Part of it, you can put longevity into play too. When you look at careers, I think longevity does matter, and it makes an impact on how you think about players. Terrell Davis had a 3-year window of greatness, but it's like you look at guys like Priest Holmes, another 3-year window of greatness, and Priest Holmes is not a Hall of Famer, but he did have 3 of the best years of all time.
Doesn't that just mean that Gronkowski did more with less? He had fewer opportunities because he played in fewer games?
No, he didn't play in fewer games, as a matter of fact. He actually has more games played, and on a per-game basis, then Travis actually trumps him in all categories but touchdowns.
Gotcha.
So, anyways, my point to what I'm saying there about the statistics of things is, these Terrell Davis and Priest Holmes guys of the world, in a window is great, but the longevity of guys like Frank Gore, just because he was able to be so consistent for so long, he probably will be a Hall of Famer, even though he wasn't better than a guy like a Terrell Davis or a Priest Holmes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Frank Gore is easily in the Hall of Fame.
So longevity can be a factor, and my point with saying that is Travis is probably going to play, I would say another 3 to 4 to 5 years in this league, and I see Gronk maybe playing another 8 games total before he's done.
Yeah, on that one. I don't know. For me, it's a big debate. It really is a big debate in my head right now because he did miss the key seasons in 13 and 16. But if you look at the All-Pro selections, they pretty much rotated from 2011 to 2018. If it wasn't Gronk, it was Kelce. If it wasn't Kelce, it was Gronk. And then 19, of course, Gronk retired, sat out all season, came back in 2020, 2021. But if you look at the effectiveness, the guy that maybe impacted his team the most, I honestly think it was Gronk in the end that impacted his team because he was there scoring 6 points for you, which is, more than 0, as my brother would say. So you're looking at a guy that's out there scoring 92 touchdowns in his career. That's a guy that's scoring 6 points for his team every single time versus a guy that's scoring, what is he at? 57, I said? Yeah, 57. And don't get me wrong, Kelce did have other weapons with him as well, with Tyreek Hill coming into play, especially him, and then having some decent quarterbacks. And, yes, Gronk had Tom Brady pretty much his entire career, which is awesome to see. But I'd rather have a guy scoring the 6 points 92 times than I would have a guy scoring more than or adding up more than maybe 10,000 yards, which is impressive, but I'd rather have more effectiveness in those short years that he played. He's played 11 or I guess what would be 10 years technically. Yeah, 10 years technically. So I'd rather have a guy 10 years scoring me touchdowns all day long than I would have a guy that plays 13 years getting me a bunch of yards.
I do want to point out to you guys on a catch percentage basis that Travis Kelce's career at this point is 70.8% catch rate compared to 64.7% catch rate. And I see that number and I'm just going, so why the hell did a guy that have Tom Brady have a 64% catch rate compared to Travis, who has worked with Alex now and Patrick, have a 70? That's actually a pretty wide difference in catch rate, in my opinion.
Right.
So
and if you look at
hands wise, you could give the edge to Travis Kelce in that regard.
The yards per target, though, Gronk has that in play there. He had 9.9 with New England for 9 years and 8.6 with Tampa, and ended up with a 9.7 career yards per target versus a 9.1 with Kelce.
I think that Gronk
so that's a guy that's just available.
I think Gronk's been a better vertical tight end.
Oh, by far.
Compared to, well, the difference is this: that Travis is a guy who's a tight end. Get him the ball in 5 yards, he can take that 15 to 20. Or with Gronk, you get him the ball down the field, throw that ball 20 yards, and that's your completion. He's just a better go route type of player where Travis runs slants, quick outs. He runs all kinds of different things, and he's catching the ball underneath a lot more. Mind you, he worked with Alex Smith for about 5 years. So, those kind of things make an impact overall in the way a player performs. But I will say Gronk's, his body, we could box out players, is better than what Travis could do. But Travis has better separation than Gronk could ever dream of doing. So that's my thought on that.
Any other thoughts, Jason, on this Gronk Kelce deal?
No, you were kind of vague on that, Tanner. So did you choose Gronk or did you choose Kelsey?
I think I'm going Gronk. I think I'm going to go the Gronk side. He'll end up with a better career because he's more effective where he's at. He's more effective being available downfield. He's more effective in the red zone of scoring 6 points.
I do want to point out
so.
only one of them had the greatest tight end season of all time. Just 2 years ago.
Kelce.
A season that it will probably never be touched again for a long ass time. So
yeah. I mean, I'm still going Gronk here.
Yeah, I would say if Gronk does come back, I mean, he's going to get over 100 touchdowns for a career, which is going to be insane.
So how crazy is this though? Like we're talking Gronk and Kelce right after the years of Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates. Like,
yeah, I mean the tight end position is totally different now.
How crazy has that transformed?
It's just a different thing. I mean, tight ends now can line up all over the field, and you don't have to be in line. You know, Dallas Clark was one of the great tight ends of our day as just a pure receiving tight end. He was a shitty ass blocker, but as far as a receiving tight end, Peyton Manning made him look like gold.
But now we're talking about two blockers in the 2000s with Antonio Gates and Tony G, and pass receptions, and now you're talking about Travis Kelce and Rob Gronkowski, who are both fabulous blockers. And now we're into the era where we have George Kittle in the era. We had Waller right there.
I don't know. Like I feel like after this current thing with Kelce and so on, like I don't know who the next great tight end to step up is going to be at the moment. For some reason, those guys just still are at the top of the game. And Kittle, I mean, he's in his getting towards his late 20s actually, and he's not as good as Kelce or Gronk.
Kittle, I feel like, is the Mike Allstott of tight ends. Essential.
Yeah, Tanner, and I'm glad you brought up the different eras because it's a completely different game now.
Oh, by far.
And that's the reason why I still have Tony Gonzalez as the best Chiefs tight end in history. But that's a debate for another day.
Well, what's funny about this current debate is that now 2 times we've debated about Travis Kelce. I'll end up right about both of them. So, because obviously you guys were Gonzalez homers the first time, and now you're being Gronk homers. Meanwhile, I'm on Travis the whole time.
Hey, all I gotta say, if Tony G had Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith, then we might be talking a different ball game.
Bullshit.
Might be talking a different ball game.
Mike, you lied to me, dude. You said you were gonna pick Gronk before the show. You gotta stop lying to me like that.
Right. No. You guys know I'm a Travis ball washer. I got his jersey at home still, so I'll ride with my boy. My boy, me and Travis go way back. I remember the day we drafted Travis Kelce, everyone on Twitter was pissed. They're like, "Oh, what are we doing drafting this tight end or whatever?" And I was like, "Dude, if you're pissed off about Travis Kelce being drafted, you've never watched him play before." And I was excited about his blocking before his receiving, as a matter of fact, because his blocking, he was ruthless. He was a ruthless blocker. In the receiving game, he actually just got better and better and better once he got to the pros. So that was actually something that he matured on as time went. And speaking of maturity, the antics of Kelce over the years we've seen in the past, in the early days, would get flagged. He would do all kinds of things, which I thought was funny. It would also piss me off at the same time. We don't see that. Travis is now a leader who does not cause issues or penalties, and
he understands it.
Ends up hurting the team. He doesn't do that anymore. He's a much more matured player at this point in his career, which is something I'm very proud of my man. So
it's hard for him.
Yeah, he's got to hold it back. But you know what makes you happy, Tanner? When you have a quarterback who knows what the hell he's doing, that can make you a happy player. So, yeah, it makes a difference on.
Maybe that's why Rob stuck around so long.
People's happiness, yeah. So, anyways, you guys, I'm glad we had that debate. I'll be happy 3 years from now to throw this back in your face once again. When Travis is the clear-cut goat of all time, all tight ends that have ever touched a football field. Anyways, you guys. So, with that said, you guys have something else you want to bring up here today, I would say. Now, Jason, you're going to be going to eat barbecue here in Colorado, correct? Sometime tomorrow, is that right?
Yeah, I'm going tomorrow, and I've heard that Colorado barbecue actually sucks, so I'm not looking forward to it. But I did want to get you guys' take real quick on what's your favorite barbecue that's kind of not in the Kansas City area.
So I haven't really had barbecue outside of KC except for our Tulsa trip. that we had in Oklahoma. So I'm going to go Oklahoma Joe's. And it is totally different than what KC Joe's is. So I will admit that. But yeah, I'm going to go Oklahoma Joe's just because that's only what I've had.
Yeah, that's kind of sad, Tanner. But I also don't blame
you. It is
you.
sad.
Here's the thing: when you're from Kansas City, what's the point in having barbecue other places other than just like eat it and be like, yeah, it sucks, because it's not as good as Kansas City has to offer. I've had barbecue in quite a few states at this point, and the most recent one was in Memphis, Tennessee. I had some barbecue over there, and it was fine. I normally like Memphis style barbecue, but this one right here in particular, something about Memphis is kind of trashy, and I just wasn't a big fan of it. And it's whenever you eat those things, you just ask yourself why when you're eating it, you go, why did I do this? Why did I leave Kansas City to then go have barbecue somewhere completely different? Because you're just wasting time when you have the best thing there is to offer right at home. So it's fine. Memphis is fine. Colorado, Jason, to your point here, they don't really have barbecue. Like they don't have their own style. So whatever style you have tomorrow for dinner is someone else's completely stolen style. So I just want to point that out. Texas barbecue's fine. I don't mind it. St. Louis, I guess, has their own style to it. I guess.
Louis,
but
Carolinas have their own.
Carolina, I think I do like Carolina style barbecue.
I do like Carolinas. I bet you I would if I went to the Carolinas. I'd probably be okay.
I'm a saucy guy, so I just like anything to get it wet. So whatever I got to put on there,
that's what she said,
and sauce it up a bit. That's my style right there.
Yeah, Tanner, I'm with you on that Oklahoma Joe's that we had just a few weeks back. I think that would probably be my favorite restaurant outside of the Kansas City area. And as far as sauce, I think my favorite is going to be Stubbs out of Texas. They've got a bunch of different sauces. I mean, they've got
Stubbs sauce is good.
Bunch of different seasonal sauces that they come out with, and by far that's the best sauce I've ever had that's not Kansas City related.
Nice.
Yeah, and Stubbs actually has a sugar-free barbecue sauce, which is something the girlfriend and I like to buy quite a bit to have around. So that way you're saving a little bit on the carbohydrates as you sauce up your meat a little bit.
You're eating barbecue, dude. Just let it loose.
Hey, every calorie counts, Tanner.
Just let it loose.
God, it's not like that.
Enjoy it.
No. Every calorie counts.
It's always good to sauce up your meat. I can tell you that.
That's what I'm saying. Lube it up a bit and let it go right down the throat. It's wonderful. Anyways, so what are you guys laughing about? I don't understand.
Crap.
All right, Jason. So obviously NBA is all wrapped up now at this point. NBA draft is tomorrow. Is that right?
Yes.
Tanner?
NBA draft is
tell
tomorrow. Yes.
I'm not your NBA guy.
Yes.
So I need a little help here. But basically, we're looking at a situation now where there's some rumors going around right now. I just saw one today about DeAndre Ayton potentially on the move through a trade because the Pistons are interested in him.
I can tell you right now, listen to Jeremy B, Smoking Jeremy B he does it at 7:00 Central, 8:00 Eastern. They talked about this trade rumor going into play. They are not happy about it. They do not want DeAndre Ayton at all because he disappeared when it counted the most, and they do not want to pay a guy that disappears when it counts the most.
DeAndre Ayton, as a Suns fan, he's a little big man. And what I mean by that is he has the size that you would expect a normal inside center to be able to be contributing towards.
Correct.
But he plays small. And so those are the kind of guys that are really irritating. It's like, man, why are you not playing up to your potential? And if I'm the Suns, honestly, I don't blame them if they do want to move on from DeAndre Ayton. But anyways, Jason, have the floor for a moment and just tell me your thoughts on what's going on at the moment.
Well, first of all, you said that the NBA is over. The NBA is actually never over. I'm looking forward to the draft, looking forward to the summer league and free agency. A lot of things are going to be going on in the NBA. So I don't want you guys to think that we're just going to shut it down until November because we're going to be talking NBA draft,
March,
that type of thing. Yeah. But I mainly just wanted to hit on Kyrie Irving because the Brooklyn Nets, they're 100% done with his ass. Okay. So they want him out of there. But they got to figure out a trade. And so a few teams out there have shown interest. And so I wanted to give you guys my thoughts on what would be the best fit for him. And then I wanted you guys to also give me your takes on where you think he should go. I said it on the Monday show. I think that the Lakers would be the best fit Now, obviously, to make that happen, it's going to have to be a 3-team trade. That way, the Lakers could get rid of Russell Westbrook's ass because they certainly don't want him anymore. But they would have to figure out a way to get Westbrook off the books. And I think the Lakers would have to give up THT and that 2027 and 2029 first-round draft picks. But I think that Lakers are the best fit here. And a lot of people are worried about Kyrie's ego because he's a guy that doesn't really think that he needs a head coach. And that might be true, but he's also a guy that's really never done shit without LeBron James on his team. So if you want to kind of revive your career, what's the best thing you can do is to get LeBron James back on your team.
Correct.
And so I think those guys have already proven, whether you guys like Kyrie Irving or not, that tandem has already proven that they can win a championship. And if they can also have Anthony Davis, a healthy Anthony Davis in the mix, then I think that's the perfect fit. And I think it's a scenario where you could actually get Rob Pelinka to give up those 2 first-round picks because I think it'd be worth it. Kyrie Irving is an excellent shooter, and that's something that the Lakers were pretty shitty at last year. They didn't have enough shooters on that team. Kyrie's got amazing handles. He can create his own shot. He's an amazing shooter. So that's my favorite fit. As far as my least favorite, a lot of rumors out there about the Miami Heat and the fact that they think that the Miami Heat would trade Tyler Hero, who was the 6th man of the year. They think Pat Riley doesn't really like him that much. Well, guess what? I can promise you that Pat Riley does not want Kyrie Irving
not at all
on that fucking team. I can guarantee you that, because what's he going to be? He's going to be a cancer in the locker room. He doesn't seem to me like he's a Pat Riley guy, and he sure as fuck is not a Jimmy Butler type of guy. You talk about problems in the locker room. Jimmy Butler doesn't put up with guys that kind of show up to work whenever the hell they want. And I realize the vaccine situation was completely different, but Kyrie Irving was that dude. Long before the vaccination issue came up, he was that dude, whether it was personal problems or whatever he was going through. The guy didn't want to show up to work. And so that's not a guy that Jimmy Butler is going to want to play with. Pat Riley doesn't want him there. So that would be my worst fit, would be the Miami Heat.
I fully agree with your worst fit. I would not want to see Kyrie in Miami in the same situation. That would be bad.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas, Mike, before I go in?
Well, I just want to point out, I do like this quote from Colin Cowherd today. He stated that he feels like Kyrie Irving is like cryptocurrency. And obviously, I mean, it's very up and down. And a lot of times when it's down, it's way down. But when it goes up, it's really, really good. And that makes a lot of sense to me when I think about Kyrie Irving and the kind of personality he has. You want to have a motivated Kyrie Irving in the situation that he's put in. And obviously, he's not motivated with the Nets. He's not happy with that situation at all. And I don't blame him in a lot of ways. It's just you're putting too many guys, too many heads in the situation where they just can't get along. That's why, you know, we've talked about the Nets the last 2 years, Jason, where I understand you have belief in the Nets and you thought the Nets were going to be, you know, championship contenders the last 2 years. It doesn't happen because because it does make an impact on how teams turn out. And Kyrie's not the kind of guy that's going to necessarily bring chemistry to a locker room. And so, yeah, the Heat, in my opinion, would be an awful situation. I don't know that he would be a good fit on the Suns by any means. I can't say for sure he would, just because CP3 is still in the mix, and something would have to happen with him at that point. And as far as I understand, CP3 is just going to have one more goddamn year over there in Phoenix, and we'll just deal with it. And his old fart ass will just blow off into the wind. When
think about it too, right? It could happen technically, because if Ayton doesn't get signed back in, they would have that payroll, but it wouldn't work out between CP3 and him.
No, exactly. With having CP3 and him on the same team would never work.
It wouldn't work out.
So you'd have to get rid of CP3 some way, some fashion. And I don't know if you'd have to hire a hitman to eliminate CP3. What you'd have to do to get him off the books somehow.
The Suns essentially would lose size. They need size to be able to compete more with these guys in that division. So, like, Kyrie Irving is not the answer for the Suns.
Yeah, and I would say too with the Suns that if you sent Kyrie Irving to the Suns, yeah, I think it looks good on paper, but I don't know if Kyrie's been in the league for a while now. I don't know if he would actually respect Devin Booker in his game, and I don't know that those two would get along because Kyrie needs an older player to like basically put him in his place, and I think LeBron James is the only guy that could do that, and it's possible.
I believe that. I really do.
It's quite possible that LeBron is the only player in the league that Kyrie would respect enough to actually go there and want to play with him and try to win a championship.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know that Devin Booker and him would get along either. Devin Booker is a very, very driven individual, and he does care a lot about the game. Cares a lot about winning.
Yeah.
But I don't know that he's the kind of guy that would necessarily feel like it's his place to control another adult man who's been in the league for a long ass time now. I don't think he would be interested in taking on that role.
No, that's fair. I believe that. So let me throw this out to you. Here's some rumors I've been seeing and hearing as well through the Let's Talk Sports Network. Knicks fans aren't happy with this at all because they do not want Kyrie either. Obviously, none of the Northeast does at all. Stay away. But just throwing it out there because this is what I've seen. New York Knicks. They're trying to make a move for Kyrie. They're trying to make a move for Brogdon out of Indiana. They're trying to make a move for Jalen Brunson. And there's another guy, if they can't get any of those two, or maybe one of the two between Kyrie and them, there could be a deal for Donovan Mitchell coming into play for the Knicks. They're trying to actually build a roster with a couple superstars. As one of the guys in Let's Talk Sports group page said, essentially it's just get Kyrie in, get another superstar in, and let's just sell tickets, right? It ain't going to be about building a roster to be able to produce a championship. So the Knicks could be one. My suggestion for Kyrie, if he can actually, play within the team, like you just had your chance with Kevin Durant, one of the easiest, I feel like, guys to work with in the league, and you can't make that work obviously because you want out because of management, whatever. So give me if Dan Antoni, if he signs with Charlotte, if he becomes the head coach there, I want Kyrie to go to the Charlotte and be the vet for Charlotte, baby. Be the guy for Dan Antoni to be able to actually do something.
So you're going to try to automatically ruin LaMelo Ball's career after he's only been in the league for like 2 years by bringing
it's already ruined. He's with Charlotte Hornets.
Kyrie Irving. You're going to try to ruin Miles.
It's already ruined
career by bringing in that cancer into.
He's with Charlotte Hornets. It's already ruined, Jason. It's done. It's already been done.
No, you like all those players, Tanner. You love Terry Rozier. You like.
I love Bridges, dude. Bridges, my guy.
I know you hate LaMelo, but they're a young, up and coming team. Why would you throw in an old bum like Kyrie to ruin everything?
Because Kyrie, I feel like if he can give anything of his wisdom to a young team, it would be Charlotte. It'd be the guy that would become a vet, who would actually be a vet to some guys, instead of just this guy that is silent and does nothing the entire time. I don't want to say, like, the guy would enhance the team by far, but he could also enhance the team by far with his wisdom, his history, everything that he's done. The guy played with freaking LeBron James and won a title after being the worst in the year. Like, the guy has experience. He has stories. There has to be something there he can pass to the young guys to boost that Hornets team to be something.
Yeah, I'll throw one other team out there just because I know they have interest. That's the LA Clippers.
That's my other one. Yep.
Yeah, so they were talking about maybe trading Paul George for Kyrie Irving, and that's a great trade if you're the Brooklyn Nets. If you can somehow pull that off, it would be a complete joke, though, in terms of the Clippers, because you'd have a guy in Kyrie Irving that might play 40 or 50 games if you're lucky. Then you got another guy in Kawhi Leonard that might play 40 or 50 games if you're lucky. So it'd be a complete disaster, I think, for the Clippers. But
I love that.
Dude, that would be amazing if the Nets could pull that off.
So here's the Nets issue, right, Jason? Here's the Nets other issue that they're not thinking about, or maybe they're not talking about yet. If Kyrie leaves, Kevin Durant leave? Because Kevin Durant that's the whole reason they went there, is to went there together. Kevin Durant could go or request a trade if this Kyrie deal actually does fall through.
I mean, we're then that's another topic.
That's a whole other conversation, right?
Yeah, I mean, because KD, I mean, he's going to be washed here in about a year and a half, 2 years. So, I mean, I don't think it really matters where he goes at this point. He's not going back to Golden State. They don't want him back.
They don't want him back.
I mean, where the heck's he going to go? I mean, he's going to go play with some other team that's got a bunch of old bums that are going to try to string together a championship, but it's never going to work out. So, yeah, I mean, I think KD is pretty much done at this point.
I heard the Knicks are hiring.
Yeah, throw him on the Knicks. Who cares with Donovan Mitchell?
All right, guys. Hope you got that out of your system now, so we can wrap this thing up. So, obviously, the NBA draft. We'll see how that unfolds. Jason, I'll be curious to see your input on what you think happened after this is all done with, and if you're happy, or obviously you being a fan of the Spurs, I'll be curious to see if you care about who they picked up in the draft, and kind of go from there. But we'll save that for a later day, obviously.
All right. And get my plugs in real quick here, guys. Saturday, 11 o'clock a.m. Central. I got a special announcement on Let's Talk Sports. Tune in to see exactly what that announcement's going to be. Something exciting coming into play. Other than that, guys, until that announcement, we'll see you next Wednesday.
And if you've for some reason missed the Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski debate, go back about 20 minutes and you'll find it. So, Jason, any final thoughts?
No, just I would say do what Mike just suggested, and you'll figure out that JG and Tanner were right in that debate.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait, dude. Just like the first time. 2 years from now, I'm just going to shove it right back up your ass.
See you guys.
All right, guys. With that said, I'll see you on the next one.
Boomer Sooner.